welcome to the regular meeting of the Henry County Board of Commissioners for 9 a.m. Tuesday, November the 1st, 2011. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask for an acceptance of the agenda. Motion by Mr. Holmes and a second by Mr. Auletta. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. The first item on the agenda this morning is a proclamation in honor of Retired Educators Day. And I see we do have some here in the audience to receive the proclamation, and I'd like to read it to you. Whereas the Governor of the State of Georgia has proclaimed the day of Sunday, November 6, 2011 as Retired Educators Day in Georgia, and whereas in Georgia alone, more than 92,000 retired educators dedicated their careers to inspiring young people to reach their full potential, and whereas more than 22,000 are members of the Retired Educators Association, and these retired teachers regularly donate thousands of hours of volunteer service each year and make invaluable contributions to the welfare of their respective communities across the state, and whereas for 53 years the Georgia Retired Educators Association has dedicated its efforts to improving the welfare of retired educators, providing them opportunities to become involved in community activities, and whereas it is appropriate that a day be designated for citizens to express their appreciation for the lasting contributions that retired educators have made and continue to make for the betterment of our own community and for society as a whole. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Henry County Board of Commissioners that the day of November 6, 2011 shall be Retired Educators Day in Henry County, during which we encourage all citizens to honor those who have dedicated their lives to the education of our youth this first day of November 2011 by the Henry County Board of Commissioners. And we do greatly appreciate all that you have done for the state, for the children in this state, and what you're continuing to do. And at this time, we'd ask if you would come to the front. We'd like to present you with the proclamation. Mr. Holder has some brief remarks he would like to make.
I would, Madam Chair. This proclamation that's honoring the retired educators is certainly appropriate. I know so many times we talk about public safety and the importance of public safety, and certainly that's important. But with these retired educators, We entrust the lives of our children to them daily. And today we're focusing on the retired teachers. And they have not given up. They have spent a career in you heard me say trying to educate our children. But beyond retirement, they are working almost daily in some activity, trying to share and to give back to our children something that they have achieved over their life. And as an example, Johnny Appleseed's here with us today. And he goes all over the state and probably the Southeast in doing these programs to young kids. And I can't touch on each one of these here that are represented today and what they do, but as far as mentors and being in trying to influence the lives of our children and grandchildren, my hat is off to these retired teachers. It's a strong group. They are a group that is very involved in our community, and in many cases we don't know it. Again, thank you, retired educators, for the many years you've given us, and obviously for the many years you're going to continue to give us and our children. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on in the agenda to social services. The first item is a resolution requesting approval of the First Amendment to the Aging Subgrant Contract with the Atlanta Regional Commission for fiscal year 2011-2012. Our presenter is Susan Craig, Director of Senior Services, Exhibit Number 2. Good morning.
Under this contract amendment, we will be receiving an additional $50,468. Those will be used to help offset some of the funding we're currently used of our county funds.
Does any board member have a question or comment? If not, you have before you a resolution approving the First Amendment, and I will entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Stamey and a second by Mr. Holmes. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
The next item is a resolution requesting approval of a contract amendment with the Georgia Department of Human Services for a Community Services Block Grant Fund for fiscal year 2010-2011. And our presenter again is Ms. Susan Craig, Exhibit Number 3.
These are actually federal funds which run with the federal fiscal year, which will, of course, end in September, on September 30. We have been de-obligated in the amount of $2,612 for the total for the year.
Does any board member have a question or comment pertaining to this item? If not, you have before you a resolution authorizing this, and I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Stamey, second by Mr. Holmes. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to Planning and Zoning Services, an ordinance to amend Chapter 12, Section 12.04.00 and 12.04.03, Appeal of Zoning Advisory Board and Administrative Actions and Application Requirements as it pertains to the appeals process in accordance with Section 12.02.11 and 12.03.00 of the Henry County Unified Land Development Code. Our presenter is Brecca Johnson, Planning and Zoning Department, Exhibit Number 4. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. The proposed amendment before you has been requested by staff for the purpose of clarifying and simplifying the appeal process for decisions and interpretations made by the Zoning Advisory Board and multiple departments in which they implement or follow through and enforce the ULDC. Currently, our appeals ordinance in Chapter 12 states that appeals to decisions made by the zoning administrator shall be filed with the county clerk's office. There wasn't really any clarity on where appeals would be submitted for the Zoning Advisory Board, but clearly that falls under the Planning and Zoning Department. In March 2011, an applicant came in and was unclear about the process. There was an appeal that was made, probably one of our first appeals since the ULDC was adopted, and it was unclear where it needed to be submitted. And they submitted it to county clerks, and then it came back to us and back and forth. So what staff did was we met with the county clerk's department, legal department, other transportation, plan review, and building departments to come up with a clear identification of what the appeal process should be. And on June 10th, we submitted an amendment to the Zoning Advisory Board that the county clerk's office would be the designated office. We would prepare an application for the appeals process, which we currently do not have, and that the county clerk would notify the appropriate department in which the appeal was submitted. Since that time, we met with the county clerk and county attorney to clarify and make sure we were covering all of our bases. And as you can see in the recommendation from planning staff, we have made a change that allows for the appeals process to go through the respective Henry County department in which the decision originated. And that is kind of one of the major changes. Planning staff will provide an executive summary and a detailed rationale for the appeal so that it is clear before you all and the citizens of Henry County to make a great decision. Planning staff recommends that the board approve the text amendment before you. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Does any board member have a question or comment pertaining to this item? Mr. Bowman?
I'm looking at it, Brooke, and I know this has probably always been in place, but recently, because of certain issues, I've been looking at everything that comes across just a lot tighter than I used to for some reason. But anyway, in looking at it, an appeal request along with a check for $300. Has that always been a $300 fee?
It has always been the case for, well, at one time when we had our previous code, I believe it was $200. Since our ULDC, the appeals process has been $300 in the planning and zoning department. I don't believe other departments have had an official process for appeals.
If the denial is upheld by the board, well, let's say the denial is overturned by the board, do they get their $300 back?
No, sir. That is the cost of staff time, legal advertisement. So, no, they would not get that. All of our fees for zoning applications are non-refundable.
Well, they've already paid, though, for permit, zoning application fees. They've already written checks for those issues, correct?
That's correct.
So then, in an effort to feel like if they were being treated fairly, they got to pay another $300 to appeal it. How did we arrive at $300? Is there a time and hour basis there? Do you know exactly how much it takes to do it? How did we arrive at $300?
It's my understanding, and I've been here for almost 10 years, $300 has always been the appeal fee. I think in 2006, a previous division director went back and reanalyzed all of our fees for all applications and, more importantly, for the appeals process. As Brecca stated, a lot of that money goes into legal advertisements, and a lot of times when appeals come in, they don't meet the standard legal advertisement deadline, so we have to do a display ad. Display ads are much more expensive than our standard regular legal advertisement. If there is an appeal file, we also have to repost the property and do another staff report, because we do submit the same staff report, but we also do a new executive summary for it. And we most certainly can go back and look at it if you think that fee is too high, or if we should look at what other jurisdictions do in regards to appeals.
I wouldn't mind knowing what other jurisdictions do, as well as I would like to know, I'd like to know more about, okay, you're talking about a display ad again. Whose fault is it, if we use fault for a word, that you have to do the display ad? Can you not extend it out to where you don't have to do a display ad? All these are, I don't know the answer to these. Most of the time I know the answer to a question I'm asking, but I don't know these. So.
Right. With appeals, what we typically try to do is get it on the next available agenda, And the way an appeal is, you don't have to advertise it 15 to 45 days. You can just, once the appeal is filed, and the applicant has 30 days from the date in which they're notified that their request has been denied to file an appeal. So what we typically do is try to advertise it for the next available agenda. The way the Henry Daily Herald is we have to submit ads by 12 o'clock on Wednesday to run in the following Friday's paper. So depending on when the application or when the appeal is actually filed, that determines if we will do a standard legal ad or a display ad.
Okay. So,
Mr. Holder?
Madam Chair, as far as what Commissioner Bowman brought up, I think is more important than the $300 and the amount of the filing fee is the fact that it could be returnable. And I agree wholeheartedly with the fact that if an appeal was overturned by the Board of Commissioners, then the person was right to begin with, and why should they have to pay the additional $300 if they were right? And then that might discourage somebody not denying an appeal. You know what I'm saying, at the other level. So I would, to me, the most important part of that, rather than $300, is to give someone a fair shot, for lack of a better term, in the fact that if they were proved right, or this board found them to be right and overturned the ZAB's decision, then I think the $300 or the filing fee should be returned.
And I'm looking at Mike Bush for this because I'm not sure from accounting purposes what would typically happen is we would receive the check and then we would have to do a refund back. And I'm just not sure if maybe we should hold the check or what would best be, or go ahead and cash it and then submit for a refund. So, I mean, we certainly could look at that and certainly look at other jurisdictions.
I would like to see that made as part of the process, because I'd hate if anybody was put in that position and determined to be correct in their action, and then have to pay to prove that they were right. That's not right. And as far as the $300 ad and the display ads, I'm very familiar with that, and I understand that. And $300 has been the standard for many years. And I appreciate you bringing up the fact of the appeal and refunding the money if they were found to be right. I would support that 100%.
And because this is a text amendment before you all, certainly if that's your recommendation, now would be the time to go ahead and make that change. I certainly will check with other jurisdictions, and we can bring something else back at a later date. But if it is the wishes of the board to proceed with amending it, now would be the perfect time to do it without us having to go back to the Zoning Advisory Board at a later date.
That's good.
Jerry, a comment. Sharon, what is the actual cost to advertise in the paper? What is the real hard cost of that?
It varies. For a display ad, it can range anywhere from about $140 to $160 for just a standard display ad. It's my understanding the paper charges us based on the number of words that we submit to them. So, yes, so it varies from week to week. I will tell you, if we do it on a Friday, they charge us double because it runs in the weekend paper and they place it on the internet. So we actually pay 2 times for the same advertisement.
Okay, what is the standard, just the regular line without the display box?
Maybe $20 or $30.
And the only way around that is basically all you got to do is extend the advertising period out further. If shorter period, if you're in that 15-day window, quite naturally you have to do the bigger advertising. But if you made it part of the process that it had to be 30 days out, then you wouldn't be required to do it.
Right, and the only reason we do that is because we as a staff feel like the applicant's already gone through one process to wait to get on the Zoning Advisory Board agenda. And as quickly as we can get them on the BOC agenda, that's what we try to do so that they don't have to wait another month or two. But we certainly could hold it out and do all of them as a standard legal ad rather than a display ad.
I would like to see Mr. Holder to actually, if he's going to make that part of a motion, to actually do the 30 days. That way, if we have to absorb it, it's less cost to the county that we're actually losing. So instead of doing, what did you say, it was $20 for just a regular line, the only way around that one is we would simply add 30 days to it. So in 15 days, they would be required to wait 30 days in order for proper advertising to be put in place.
I would defer to the county attorney, though, if we can keep them up that long, or if there's a legal requirement.
I think Mr. Harris and I were just discussing that, whether or not there were zoning matters that required the 15-day advance notification, or if they were just purely administrative type issues and did not require that. And we'll have to look at those and see, and make the proper adjustments in the ordinance.
I don't know if that proper adjustment is a minimum of 15 or taking it all the way to 30. I think it's 30. It's going to be required to do 30 because you're having to do the bigger box for the 15-day for the quicker window.
Yeah.
But if the county's going to have to absorb it with the possibility of refunding the check, why wouldn't we save the county a little money just by adding 2 weeks to the advertising?
That's right. That's right. And maybe, perhaps, I'm not sure if it's a policy reason to try to get these appeals heard as soon as possible. Normally, applicants who are appealing are under time-sensitive deadlines, and they want a quick resolution to issues. So staff probably has tried to accommodate the wishes of the applicant in moving the matter as quickly as possible. That's my surmise.
Yes, and you're correct.
Mr. Arletta?
I believe you started out saying that the reason for this was to clarify for persons who wanted to appeal and give clarification. I didn't hear the differences as to what was needing to be clarified, so I apologize, but maybe I missed it. But what is it that was not clear that this is making clear?
Well, in our code now, it states that appeals to zoning or administrative actions have to be submitted to the county clerk's office. We'd had an applicant come in March who was submitting an appeal, and it was to a zoning advisory board decision. And it was just some confusion about, they said, okay, well, the ordinance says take it to the county clerk, so they took it to the county clerk, but the county clerk may not be aware of the request, why it's coming in, what have you. The planning staff would be more familiar because we've been working with the applicant. If they're submitting an appeal, we work with them with the zoning advisory board. So what we did was we met with the county clerk, Ms. LaTanya from legal, and other departments to kind of come up with what kind of makes logical sense and makes it easier for the citizen when they come in. They know exactly where to go. They can talk to the department in which the decision was denied, and then kind of go from there. Because we submit our executive summaries to the county clerk's office regardless, so we didn't want to double dip with that. So that was what we were clarifying.
The clarification that you're given is no longer is going to the county clerk. It then instead will be filed with the Henry County Department in which the administrative decision was made. Is
That's
that correct?
correct.
Is that the total change to this ordinance?
No, we also added that there will be a $300 fee to be filed with that department, because I think we had it where it would be filed with the county clerk's office as well.
So it just follows.
Yes, sir. So just to kind of clean that up, we wanted to go back through.
So those really are the two clarifying points only in this whole ordinance
Right.
change.
For the most part, and just to clarify, I know I stated this earlier, but the appeals are specifically for the ULDC. So if there are transportation issues, it would not cover any AASHTO documents or the building code from the building department. It would specifically be appeals to the ULDC. And that was one of the clarifications that the county attorney has asked us to make as well.
Thank you.
And just as an example, the lobster appeal that we had a couple of weeks ago would fall under this.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Just for clarification, and prior to this, it's gone to the county clerk. All right. And the county clerk then takes it where?
I'll defer to Sherry on this one.
Prior to this, it has gone back and forth. 1 month it'll go to the county clerk, 1 month it'll come to planning and zoning or the building department, whomever receives it. What typically happens is once the clerk receives it, she'll call and say, hey, I have an appeal over here in my office because someone's filed it with me. what are the next steps? And what we typically do is we go and pick it up. So what we're trying to do is cut that process out, because all the clerk is doing is receiving the application. She's not collecting any fees. If the application is incomplete, and really there was no application, the individual just wrote a letter saying, I am appealing the Planning and Zoning's interpretation of Section 120301. And then she would forward that to us. Well, what happens is once she receives it, 2 days may pass by. We've got to call the applicant back and say, we're missing information, or you need to pay a $300 fee, or can you tell us what happened, or why you think that you were why you need to file the appeal. So what we're trying to do is take that part out of it, so that the individual can work directly with the department that actually denied the request.
Okay, so now it would just go to that department, but does that ever become multiple departments?
It certainly could, because in the case, and I'll give you a perfect example, if a plan comes in for review, most certainly various departments can review a plan, but the final authority would be our Environmental Compliance and Plan Review Department. So while that department would say your plan has been denied, it may have been denied by Planning and Zoning, or by the Fire Department, or by DOT. So various departments could actually be involved in it, but one department would actually receive it. Now, what would typically happen is once that department receives it, they'll contact the other departments that may have been a part of the process. And at that time, a staff report would be prepared by all departments and incorporated into one.
Wow. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Arletta?
To follow up, and that was where I was trying to ask the question before, I guess, and that is, what you've just described does not clarify the process to me. It confuses it. If I walk in this building and I want to file an appeal, I know where the county clerk is, I know who the county clerk is, or I can be directed to the county clerk. The county clerk can get on the phone, as you said, and call whoever is necessary until they find the right person and make sure they get it. What you've just described to me is mayhem, because I got to walk in, I'm not giving it to a specific person, I'm giving it to a department. I've got to figure who in the department to give it to, and I don't know who that person is, and I don't know which department based on what you described when many departments are involved.
Well,
so I'm confused as to where the clarification comes. I feel more confused.
What happens is if you're denied by the Zoning Advisory Board, you're going to receive a notification from the Planning and Zoning Office saying that your request was denied by the Zoning Advisory Board on the said date, signed by either myself or the administrative assistant. So you'll know to come back to that department. The way the ordinance is laid out is whoever denies you has to notify you. So if it's a denial by the building department, you'll receive a letter from Bert. If it's denied by environmental compliance, you'll receive a letter from George Patterson. So those are the only three departments that should be sending letters out: planning and zoning, building, and environmental compliance. If the DOT department reviews the plans and they deny them, the letter won't come from DOT because all plans are submitted through George's office. So he would be the responsible party, and I'll just call him the project manager, over notifying the applicant that their requests or their plans have been denied. So whoever you receive the letter from is the appropriate person that you would go back to.
So should it clarify in this clarification that the person who signed the letter is the person they ought to seek when they come to this building?
Well, we do a fairly good job of notifying them in the letter that you are receiving a letter from the Planning and Zoning Department, and should you have any questions, you need to contact the undersigned. So I think the letter is...
Maybe in the letter we can add the sentence telling the denied individual or entity who to file the appeal with. Identify the person. Any appeals to this decision should be filed in this office with this particular person. And Commissioner Allen, to your question, we did go round and round with the internal processes involved in these appeals. When the county clerk will receive this information, because she's not involved in the day-to-day decision making, or she doesn't know anything about what happened with the underlying facts to support the denial that caused the appeal. It was more convoluted to the citizen, we felt, if they came to an individual who could not answer any questions, because she didn't know anything about the information that led to the appeal, and it would further delay the process because she would then have to call the responsible department, find out who it was that made the decision, what was about, can you get information over to me so I can answer questions. it made more sense to have that individual go back to the department that has all of the information that led to the appeal. Once all of that information is compiled, by way of an application, which I ask that we create an application so that we will know exactly what the facts are that are supporting the appeal, and that staff specifically state for y'all to have, for your review, the facts or their analysis of whatever ordinance is being appealed so that y'all can make a decision. Once that is compiled, that completed appeal package is provided to the county clerk's office, and then the county clerk's office will then schedule it for the necessary hearing. We will also require in that process, if there are any advertising requirements, that would have to be shown as part of the staff's package presented to the county clerk so that we'll know all of the legal requirements have been satisfied. We went over this. We met a few times on this, went round and round, so this is just our best efforts. There probably could be a way to do it the way you're suggesting, but it just seemed to us to make more sense, and probably, I'll put the onus on me, probably make more sense to me for it to happen that way, I think. And I was, I guess, persuasive in convincing staff to agree with my position on that, just because I know that when we review it, we don't know. Sometimes when appeals come, I will call Sherry or Michael and say, so what is the board being asked to do here? Exactly what is this appeal about? And so we sort of try to streamline the process so we'll make it easier. And the goal was to make it easier for y'all to make decisions and to have all of the facts you need to make a good decision.
The application that's in our exhibits here,
Yes, sir.
is that the application?
Yes, sir, it is.
That would be the application we
So,
use.
according to this, it appears that the county clerk's signature is required on the application, but the county clerk is no longer going to be in the process of collecting the application and the money?
I think that's when she gets the information, the completed package from the department before it goes on the agenda for y'all to consider. The county clerk's office is still going to be the recipient of the completed appeal package. It's just that the initial department making the decision is going to compile all the information that will make its way to the agenda book.
I guess what I'm looking for is, I still feel this has gotten convoluted to the extent that I hand this to what I believe to be the correct department based on the signature on the denial that I got in the mail. Where in this application, it's probably here in front of me, just to make sure I don't guess, is there something that they're going to get signed that says, we've received it, and you can take this home to know, so that they know, they don't get a phone call later and say, well, you gave it to the wrong person, the wrong department, we're sorry, we don't know where it went. So at least they have something when they leave the building to confirm they actually did get to the proper party, or whoever signed for it becomes the proper party. Is that on here?
That is not on here, but what we typically do for any applications that are received by the Planning and Zoning Department, and I'm sure the Building Department as well, is you receive a time date stamp on the application. We offer to make the applicant a copy
Why not just put it on
of
this
it.
application?
And we give them a receipt when you pay the $300 fee. So that's your notice that we've received your application.
Just put it on the if they've got to fill out an application, why not put on the application received by, date received, time, and so on and so forth, or a place for the stamp, so that they have such.
It's actually on the bottom where it says for office use only.
Well, that has the county clerk's signature on it, and this isn't going to the county clerk. That was the point I'm making.
The county clerk's signature is on every zoning application that we have, even for appeals. To close out a file, you have the final signature on it. The reason the clerk's signature is on there is because once we receive the minutes, she'll get a copy of it and she'll sign off on it.
I feel like I'm going in a circle.
No, you make a good point.
Yeah, Commissioner, I think I hear what you're saying, and we can add another separate line on the application itself to pick up that information.
Yeah.
That's
But I'm just saying, if the county clerk's going to have to sign it, while I'm sitting there at a department that is not the county clerk, I've got to wait for somebody to run down the hall, get the signature of the county clerk.
No, the county clerk's signature wouldn't come in until after the process, before it goes to the board. When they fill out the application, that's being filled out by,
But that is what I was just told is where that receipt would be, where it says for office use only. And the only thing down there is the county clerk's
right,
signature.
and I think we can add another line to pick up the receipt. I see your point.
Yeah,
I
the
just
department,
feel like we've got people going someplace they think is correctly now versus a single person. If they went to the wrong place, it's accepted, and 3 weeks later, they're told, we don't know what you're talking about, and it's stuck in limbo someplace or went to the wrong place, at least they can say, I have this here that says so-and-so received it and has my money. That's all I'm looking for.
May I make a suggestion that we table this item until the next meeting and give staff an opportunity to go back, speak to the commissioners about the concerns they have as far as how the application reads, get with the county attorney to get the verbiage correct on the items that we've discussed, and then bring it back to the board at that time and have a public hearing at that time. That would be my suggestion.
I will move that motion. Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Holder and a second by Mr. Bowman. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Holder.
Just for the public's record, what we're talking about in the $300 here is not the application fee, it's the appeals fee. Some of these application fees could be up to $5,000 or whatever, and that is not refundable. I don't want them to think that we're giving the entire amount back. That is not the point. It's just the fee that they have posted to file an appeal. So that if they are proved to be right, then that's what we're talking about, returning to the applicant, not the application fee. I just wanted that clear for the record.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Mr. Holder. I know sometimes when we get talking about certain issues up here and we go in so many different directions, it can be confusing to us and certainly to the public, I'm sure. The next item on the agenda is a resolution requesting authorization to accept Federal Transportation Enhancement Funding, TE, for the purpose of constructing a greenway trail from Austin Road Middle School to Panola Mountain State Park. Our presenter is Michael Harris, Planning and Zoning Services Division Director, and it's handout number 1. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Henry County has long recognized the importance and value associated with recreation facilities and how communities' investment in quality of life features can have a direct impact on both economic development as well as health and wellness for a community. To that end, last year, staff began working to seek and solicit grant opportunities and funding opportunities to find monies to create some of these recreation facilities. In 2010, staff applied for a TE grant, Transportation Enhancement Grant, through GDOT, part of their federal funding through GDOT. In May of 2011, the county was notified by GDOT that the GDOT board member for Congressional District 13, Ms. Dana Lemon, had selected one of the Henry County projects as a TE selection. This was for a project in the Ellenwood area, called for 1 mile of trail system extending from roughly the Austin Road School Complex and running to the Panola State Park. I put a map up to kind of depict exactly where the location would be. It's right here, and area shown in the red would begin here, terminate here. It begins here in Henry County, terminates here. And as you can see, there's another ongoing project that would tie to a subsequent network of trails consisting of over 20 existing 20-plus miles of trail network already in place that's been done through Path Foundation and other partners. The resolution you have before you is to enter into an agreement with the Georgia Department of Transportation in receipt of $700,000. That was their grant award amount based on an estimated project cost of $875,000. The $700,000 represents 80% of that project cost. The county would be obligated for 20% of that cost. It is the county's intention. There's a subsequent resolution following this one in which we'd be looking to enter into an agreement with the Path Foundation, and they have offered to pick up over 14% of our 20% match, leaving the county commitment at $50,000. Again, right now the full commitment to meet the 20% is $175,000. That's for this resolution right here. There'll be a subsequent resolution to follow this one if the board moves forward and agrees to accept this funding, in which the county will be responsible for $50,000, of which that'll be done through in-kind services, which is an allowable feature for this grant. So we'd be looking at, in essence, if the board's desire, we would be putting forth $50,000 in in-kind services, and that would be through engineering, surveying, grading work, signage, site disposal. And for that, we'd get a project in excess of $875,000. And be, again, 1 mile project, 12-foot wide paved trails, include some bridges. And there's also some a depiction of some of the typical trails that are done. Again, just kind of give you an idea of what the, upside down. Sure. It does. So again, as I stated, what we're asking for right now is authorization to enter into an agreement with the Georgia Department of Transportation for the purpose of receiving the $700,000 grant funding through GDOT for the purpose of constructing this trail system.
Mike, a few weeks ago, when we discussed the Nash Farms grant, and we approved it based on the fact that our match was going to be all in kind, but at that time we were looking at a cash match for this particular match.
That's correct.
What we did, we went back in and we negotiated with the PATH Foundation to do the same thing. Pretty much, we're able to negotiate our 20% being all in kind. So I want to thank you for your help and everybody else that was involved in that. I think this is going to be great for the community. Businesses are taking notice. If you drive through the Fairview community, you're starting to see businesses come back into our strip malls. We have a company called Exigence who presented to this board just a number of weeks ago that they're making a $170 million commitment to the Fairview community. They're building a medical and retail campus that will bring upwards and over 1,300 jobs to Henry County and the surrounding area. So the county continuing to make these kind of investments will definitely get a return on those investments as we move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Does any board member have a question or comment pertaining to this item?
Just a question.
Mr. Holder?
Mr. Harris, in case, I know these are projected costs, estimated cost, if that $875,000 was exceeded, who pays? Will our proportionate share go up, or how will that be addressed?
They would be notified, we'd be notified first. Well, if our bids come back in and they do exceed that amount, then we'd have to go back to GDOT and amend the contract. And the 80, so what we're agreeing to is an 80-20 split on the project cost. So if that project cost does go up, then their portion go up, as would ours.
That's my point. Okay. But would ours still be in kind, or would it be cash?
Ours would still be in kind, and principally because we're looking at a fixed amount of $50,000 worth of in kind services. The commitment from the PATH Foundation, and I'll speak on that in just a moment, is actually it exceeds the 20%. Now, again, as noted, the 20% based on $875,000 total project cost, 20% would represent $175,000. They are committing $178,000 on their own. So we need, without $50,000 in-kind match, we need $125,000 from them in funding and services. But they're going to be exceeding that amount. So we still have that $53,000 cushion if the project cost should exceed. As what's noted.
Don't believe that. Tell us. But go ahead.
Mr. Bowman?
Michael, do we have a opt-out clause in the event that the bids should come in considerably higher? We don't anticipate that because every bid that we've had lately has been considerably lower than our budgets. But in the event that that were to happen, would we be able at that point in time to say, I'm sorry, DOT, but we don't have, let's just say it was more than what the PATH Foundation would actually be bringing into the picture. At that point in time, would we be able as Henry County to say, we don't have that?
Right. If bids come in and we've had a case recently with our landscape project where the bids came in far in excess of what was budgeted for them, then we would have the option of saying, no, we can't accept it because we don't have the money to make the match. That's our decision. Leading up to that point, that's a great point you make. Leading up to that, the engineering work that's going to be done, the PATH Foundation has committed to doing that engineering work. So up until that point, Henry County will not have spent a dime leading up to the point where we're actually going through the design process and getting the design in place to get to the point where we're ready to go out for bid. So if the bids come back and the money's not there, then certainly it's.
We could walk away.
Yes, we
That's
could.
the important
Without
thing.
without being
And
penalized.
it's important. I know we're going to be talking about the PATH Foundation in a minute on the next one,
Right.
but it is important to note that that is a private organization
It is.
that's stepping up to the table, and I think that it's probably a good one. I just would always like to have an out.
Right.
You know, in the event that something were to go wrong, we've got an out. There's a way that we can get out.
That's correct.
I'm
We
sorry.
won't be reimbursed under the contract that's before you. But it provides that we won't receive any reimbursement if we do that.
For anything that we've done.
Correct.
I mean, but PATH Foundation's doing the engineering, so basically, we would not have
Right.
done anything other than
correct.
a little
That's
bit
right.
of paperwork to bid it out.
That's right.
So we're really not, we're not going to be out anything.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, because GDOT likes to use their portion of the funding principally for the construction work. You can submit in to be reimbursed for some of your engineering work, but their preference is certainly to focus on the construction work that's done.
Thank you.
Yes.
And from the standpoint of PATH, as you said, they have exceeded the 20% requirement with what they're coming to the table with. If I understand the way the PATH Foundation works, they're looking for partnerships
That's right.
with communities, and so that's the reason why the in-kind is there, is because the PATH Foundation doesn't really have a partnership with GDOT. Their partnership is with Henry County.
That's correct. And I'm sure I'll go into more detail, but you're right. I mean, they're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and they've partnered with. They've been around for about 20 years, and they've partnered on roughly 30, 35 other trail projects. And we've talked to other jurisdictions. They rave about them, of the success they've had, and the track record has been exemplary.
And there's an opportunity for us to go back to them again for some matching funds to continue to expand this trail system throughout the county.
That's correct.
Where are we at on, I know at one time we had talked about a connectivity of all of our parks with a trail system, and had talked about utilizing some of the right-of-way that the Water Authority has with some of their sewer projects along creeks and things like that. Have we worked on a master trail system yet?
No, we haven't, and we would love to. Certainly there's a funding element involved with that as well, but I think that's the next step we need to really look forward to. That's something we've talked about, again, our comprehensive plan, our economic development strategy plan. It's coming up with a comprehensive, we've done some master plans, Nash Farm is a good example. However, having a county-wide comprehensive parks and trail plan, I think is going to be critical for us moving forward as we take on projects like this. I mean, to create connectivity between the schools, between the parks, we need to have that master plan done. So at the board's direction, we'd be happy to bring you forward some proposals to move forward in that direction.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? If not, you have before you a resolution to accept the award of the Federal Transportation Enhancement Funding Grant for the purpose of constructing trails at a trail network from Austin Road Middle School to Panola Mountain State Park. And Mr. Holmes, this lies in your district, and I'll look to you for a motion.
So move.
Have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Stamey. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. The next item is a companion to this one. It's a resolution requesting approval of an agreement with the PATH Foundation for the purpose of construction of a trail from Austin Road Middle School to Panola Mountain State Park, and that's handout number 2.
Thank you, Jen. And as stated, the PATH Foundation, we've been working with them for about a year. I'm not sure if they approached us, we approached them back about a year ago, and looking at a way to establish a trail network in Henry County. And in looking throughout Henry County, the area up in the northern part up in Ellenwood, it was about a mile. We realized we can, in constructing about a mile worth of a path, we could connect to about a 20-mile plus network. So that was the most, in looking at what was being proposed, we certainly thought we can get a lot of bang for our buck from that standpoint. By constructing a mile, they'll link us to another 20-plus mile network. So that's why that location was selected. Again, as noted, they've been around for about 20 years, and checking with other jurisdictions, they've had tremendous success in coming in, working on the projects, and they principally they work through donations, through private donations, and they've been extremely successful in moving forward through the process. They're well-versed in the GDOT process, the plan development process, so the consultants that they use, they're familiar with the process, they know what's required regarding the environmental studies, the concept reports, so they're able to navigate through that process fairly well. And, yes, sir.
Some of the other jurisdictions, some of the other counties that PATH has worked with over the years?
Yeah, certainly closest to us is Rockdale County. In fact, they're doing a lot of work in Rockdale County. In fact, if I can... As you can note here is the location of our proposed project. This area back heading down to the south, these are projects that are in place. The dashed lines represent projects that are currently, funding has been received and they're in place. And as you note, it picks up from where the existing trail network exists. And right now the plan is to extend it all the way down to the monastery down in Rockdale County. So that's work that's ongoing right now. Had a number of conversations with some of the officials at Rockdale County. They've done multiple projects with them to date. And again, everyone has been successful. Everyone is, from start to finish, they've done what they said they were going to do regarding as far as the financial donations that they agreed to, as well as following through on their work. And everything was done in a very timely manner. For them, they surely put an emphasis on moving forward and moving these projects forward as quickly as possible, because they have donors that they want to see the project move forward. So we've also spoken with DeKalb County. The project extends to the north up into DeKalb County. Same scenario. They've done multiple projects with a lot of other jurisdictions. All have been very successful, and they've got ongoing projects now. But, PATH, they're involved with those who are familiar with Silver Comet Trail. They're involved with that project. And as well as other trail networks throughout the state, rather.
And I remember from our conversation with PATH that this particular trail will does not only connect to Stonecrest Mall, but it will extend all the way to Piedmont Park in Atlanta, correct?
Yeah, I think the plan eventually calls for it to extend that far. I don't know how many years it will take to get there, but right now it extends. You can pick it up from Alexander Park, which is just beyond, just inside Rockdale County, kind of located within Panola Mountain State Park, and that'll take you all the way to the Stonecrest Mall. That same trail will be extending south all the way down to the monastery. So, again, it's a tremendous network.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions from board members? If not, there's a resolution before you requesting approval to enter into an agreement with the PATH Foundation to provide for the planning, designing, building, and maintenance of the Panola Mountain Greenway Trail. And as this lies in your district, Mr. Holmes, I'll look to you for a motion.
Madam Chair, move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Stamey. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to Public Works, we have a resolution awarding a bid to purchase trench boxes for the Stormwater Department. Our presenter is Nick Griffiths, Director of Stormwater, Exhibit Number 5. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The request before you is for 2 8x10 trench boxes with stack pins and pipe spreaders. These will be used to help meet the OSHA regulations and standards while we fulfill our service request for pipe and structure installation and replacement. We went through the standard bidding process. We were fortunate to have 8 bids submitted, with our low bidder being United Rental.
Does any board member have a question or comment? Mr. Bowman?
Just a clarification. The trench boxes are all new, correct?
Yes.
I mean, because we've got several rental companies, and then we've got some other companies that actually bid on them. I didn't know I want to be sure that they were bidding apples to apples. It's very close, but
These
just to be sure that they are new units.
Yes, these will be new trench boxes.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, you have before you a resolution awarding the bid to United Rentals in the total amount of $16,642 for the purchase of trench boxes, and I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Bowman, second by Mr. Holder. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. The next item is a resolution approving an agreement with GDOT for right-of-way mowing for State Route 920 Jonesboro Road from I-75 to Norfolk Southern Railroad. Our presenter is Terry McMickle, Public Works Division Director, Exhibit Number 6. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. Henry County is required to execute this right-of-way mowing and maintenance agreement between Henry County and the Georgia Department of Transportation in order to receive a contract in the amount of $250,000 for landscaping of Jonesboro Road between I-75 and Norfolk Southern Railroad. Once the county signs this agreement, it'll be sent to, of course, back to GDOT, but this requires us, after this plantings are all put in, requires Henry County to make sure that all of that is maintained properly. This actual maintenance work will actually be done by the City of McDonough according to the agreement the BOC adopted on August the 4th, 2011, where we had an intergovernmental agreement, if you remember that. The installation of the materials will be done jointly between Parks and Rec and the City of McDonough Public Works Department. Be happy to answer any questions you may have on that.
Does anyone have a question? If not, you have before you a resolution approving the agreement with GDOT for right-of-way mowing, and I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Stamey, second by Mr. Holmes. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. The next item is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of Patrick Henry Parkway and Meadowbrook Drive back into the official roadway system, Exhibit Number 7.
In order for Georgia DOT to make improvements to the Patrick Henry Parkway and Meadowbrook Drive, which is part of the I-75 Jodico Interchange Improvement Project, Henry County must agree to formally accept these roadways back into our official system, including maintenance and utility accommodations once the project is approved. So basically, what happens in order for GDOT to spend federal dollars, they have to adopt these roads in their system. They make these improvements. We have to sign ahead of time that we'll take them back. Obviously, I guess they've got caught before where we give them these roads and the jurisdictions don't take them back and then they have to maintain them. So now they've got a little wiser and they make us sign this agreement that once they've made all those improvements, we take them back. We call them just as information. They have yet to send us the agreement that transfers them over. We are waiting for that, but they have sent us this one. So I did go ahead and bring it to the board because I didn't want to be accused of holding them up on letting that project. So as soon as they get me the resolutions that where we temporarily give them those roads, I'll be bringing that back to the board. So if it seems a little bit out of order, I think it is, but just wanted to make y'all aware of that.
Terry, the last word that I had from Gerald Ross is that this project is set to be let in December. Do you know if that's still the time frame they're looking at?
We heard that this week as well. David talked to them about that and said, hey, they're doing some drainage improvements along in Meadowbrook down there on a couple of roads there. And by them doing that, that means that they have to get these roads turned over to them. And so we called and asked them and said, hey, you're trying to let this project by December, and we haven't seen this resolution where we make these roads temporary state routes. So we called David Millen in Thomaston and said, we'll help you all you can, but you got to get them to us. So, but they still said December, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. Maybe they'll go ahead and award it. And, you know, it takes them a while before they actually give them a notice to proceed, a couple months by the time they bid it out and then award it and then issue them a notice to proceed. Maybe they'll be getting us that paperwork in the interim, I hope.
This has probably been one of the most challenging projects that I've ever worked on. We, and Mr. Stamey will agree, I know for the last 4 to 5 years we have worked to keep this from falling off their radar at GDOT. I know you've worked on it, Michael Harris has worked on it, Sherry Matthews has worked on it, and it seemed for a while there every 2 weeks we were having to write a letter or call to keep this on their priority list. But this project's been in the tip since 1999, so these things don't happen overnight.
Yeah, just in retrospect, it started when the Henry County representative group went to Georgia DOT and asked to accelerate this project, and the state said, well, we asked them to accelerate it. Georgia DOT said, well, if you want to accelerate it, go ahead and start paying for the design. So if you remember, even back then, the reason it got accelerated then is the county went up there and put a large sum of money into initiating the design of that interchange. Georgia DOT later took it over themselves and completed it, but Henry County did pay a substantial amount of money originally getting this project designed. So.
Well, thank God we accelerated it, or it would be 10 years from now before we're even at this point.
This is the accelerated view.
Wow.
Madam Chair, while you were talking about that particular area, do you have an update on possibly where the Greta park and ride system is going to start? Because I think you're pretty close too, right?
Well, there's a little bit of a glitch in that,
Yeah.
too, because of the funding for Greta. It's been included in the proposed regional T-SPLOST, and if that T-SPLOST fails in July of next year, I can probably see a huge reduction in Greta Express services to Henry County, which may be the kiss of death for another park and ride lot. So that's kind of, the jury's kind of still out on that one.
Because this was scheduled to start before the bridge project.
It was, but Greta, Chairman's right, the Greta, the park and ride depends on that T-SPLOST. There's just, Greta funding got cut off, is what happened, and no funding there to keep them going, if you will. They're even having trouble maintaining the routes that they're sending to Henry County now. So they're struggling.
And we were told that the governor is not requesting that in the upcoming budget, funding for Greta. So there are a lot of things up in the air, which if we lose our Greta Express, that's going to be very detrimental to the 3 existing lanes on I-75, which we had the discussion about that too, and to put 1,200 to 1,500 cars back on those lanes in the morning going into Atlanta is going to create quite a nightmare for our commuters. So, but that's kind of where we're at on that. Any other questions or comments about the acceptance of the resolution, Mr. Holder?
Terry, would you define utility accommodation? What
It
that
means,
actually means?
when Georgia DOT gives it back, they have a standard program of how we are to handle utility placements in the right-of-way. So that means instead of just arbitrarily letting these utilities place their utilities in our right-of-way, we actually permit it, inspect it, and regulate it. So when we agree to take them back, we agree to monitor the utility placement in the right-of-way and manage it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Arletta?
What I understood you to say, and I may be wrong, is we do not have the agreement yet that this is specifying that we will agree to?
What we don't have yet is the agreement that turns these county roads into temporary state routes. That agreement, if there's federal dollars involved in the project, they can only spend those dollars on federal roads. So the way that we spend these dollars on federal roads, we make these county roads temporary state routes. So then they spend the dollars on it. When they're through with the project and it's all completed, then this agreement that we're asking y'all to ratify this morning, it says we have to take them back. Once they're through with them, finalized them out, then we take them back over for maintenance.
Okay, so there's no agreement after the road is completed that needs to be done. It's just that we accept the roads back. And here's the reason I'm asking. According to resolution, we're going to accept the title ownership of these properties that were either constructed, realigned, or widened as part of this project. My concern is that if there is an agreement that's going to be put in place for us to receive them back, I just want to make, I know that probably has ever happened, but it is, again, part of me saying risk control, if you would, and that is that an agreement doesn't get put in front of us that says we're obligated by this, and the agreement says, and you will pay for 50% of the construction cost or whatever was done during the process of constructing, realigning, or widening. So unfamiliar with the process itself, but when I read this, I feel if we're going to sign an agreement after this resolution to accept it back, I don't want to obligate us to be forced to take whatever they hand us, and that includes something that says we're going to pay for whatever those costs were, a portion of those costs.
The money part of this I-75 interchange is all GDOT funded. The county has not been designated in any way to participate in the cost of the I-75 interchange project. So there would have to be right now an agreement in place where the county has put themselves on the hook for any funding. That there isn't a document today that does that. So I don't think they'll be coming up and sending us and saying, you got to pay this or that. The board would obviously have to approve that. I would have to bring it back to y'all, and then y'all could approve it or not.
But what I'm saying is if we sign this, it appears, and I'm deferred to legal on this, that this is saying when it's completed, we'll accept it.
That's correct.
Point, period, paragraph, we're done. But if there's going to be an agreement attached to the acceptance of it after this is done, I'd want to make sure that acceptance has been reviewed, that we're not obligating ourselves to take it under some terms that are later specified that are other than it's free and clear, they've done the work, we're not paying a dime for it, and so on and so forth. And if that's what we've always done in the past, I apologize. I've not been a part of that process, but I'm just trying to protect us. There's nothing that, after obligating ourselves to take this per this, that's all this says, we're going to take it back. It doesn't say under what terms. It just says we promise we're going to take it back. So I don't know if that's clear or not, but that's...
They would...
We're responsible. Once it comes back to the county, when it comes back, we're responsible for everything that goes along with maintaining the road. I mean, that's just standard.
We're responsible for it now.
Yeah,
We're responsible for it now.
Right now, it's my responsibility.
That's correct.
Again, I'm not not mentioning that what we will be obligated to do once we take it back. I'm just saying I want to make sure the terms of taking it back are not to pay for any of the improvements that were made to the road from the time we gave it to the time we came back. This doesn't specify that, and if that's the case, and we're confident that's not the case, then...
I don't think there's any language in here that says that we have to pay them back any money.
I think they would have gotten that up front if they wanted some money from us.
Yes, absolutely. They've never been shy about asking that in the past.
That horse has already left the barn, Commissioner, so I don't think there's any risk of them
I've
asking.
still heard in recent town halls that they're still looking for the money for this project, so...
I will note, Commissioner, that we do have an opportunity. We will review their plans and have reviewed the plans of the modifications they will be making to these roads, and we do have a say in that. As a matter of fact, one of these, we just sent it in the other day. They're going to be doing some drainage improvements along these roads, and we made some requests to add some manholes to have access if we have to clean it out. So we do review and make comment on the proposed changes that they are making to our roadway system, so that we just don't take back something that we wouldn't like, or it doesn't meet our... We've even made comments on Patrick Henry as a part of this project as well. We've even had input there on some driveway cuts in that area that'll be a part of that project. So we do have a lot of, I think Commissioner was aware of that one, where we do interface with GDOT on what we are getting back. So we do look at those plans and make comments. And I think that's where you're headed, is we get something back that's going to be problematic. So we do try to review those, make comments, and...
it's problematic or
cost.
With some strings attached for what they've done, wanting reimbursement.
And one other, might add, to answer your question, we have probably done this process. We did it on Eagles Landing, we did it on Jonesboro, we did it on the interchange out here at 2081. Just about every project that's on a state route, they usually touch a county road. So I can't tell you how many times we've seen this process, but it's probably in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 times I've been through this process. So. And we haven't seen them come back and ask for money.
I defer to your experience in this process.
Any other questions or comments? If not, you have before you a resolution for the local public road acceptance at the completion of this project with GDOT, and I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Bowman, second by Mr. Stamey. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to County Manager, we have a resolution requesting approval of a memorandum of agreement with the Atlanta Regional Commission, and that's handout number 3. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Board. In January of 2010, the Atlanta Regional Commission formed a regional transit committee. This transit committee is responsible for regional transit coordination for all types of transit, from urban mass transit to rural transit. This is a board, obviously, we do not have mass transit, but we have a very critical rural transit system within Henry County that many of our most underprivileged citizens utilize on a daily basis to get to services, to get to help meet their transportation needs, to meet their daily needs of life. And in following the actions of this committee over the last couple of years, it has become increasingly clear that their actions and their policy making has become more important to what we do here in Henry County with our rural transit system. In addition to that, the initial cost of joining this board to where the financial support that the ARC had requested was $10,000 a year. They've reduced that down to $5,000 a year for 2012, and I think it's definitely in our best interest to be a part of this committee and to have a policy-making voice along with other communities such as ourselves that just have rural transit where we can protect the resources that we receive currently from the ARC.
And just to follow up on what the county manager has said, David Williamson has been attending these monthly meetings, but Henry County is not a voting member of this board. Now that the governor has formed his Transit Governance Study Committee, and they've included Greta Express as part of that study committee, as well as the rural transit, as well as MARTA is not included in this, but the other bus systems throughout the metro area. We have federal funds that we receive for our transit system here, our rural transit. We have 3 pots of federal money that we receive to help us operate that for our disadvantaged citizens here and for our seniors. But there may potentially come up a vote or a decision that's made on calling those funds into a regional pot and then dispersed back out, which could impact our ability to continue providing services to our citizens, which is one reason why it's critical that we have a voice and a vote on that committee. And so that's why this request is before you. We turned it down last year, but there have been some things that have changed at the state that really makes it apparent that we need to try to protect our interests as much as possible. Does any board member have a question or comment? Mr. Oletta?
Being picky, but in one of the whereas there is a typo in there, just a
match.
Match, yeah. Okay, you got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, you have a resolution before you supporting becoming a voting member on the RTC committee, and I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Holder, second by Mr. Bowman. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a resolution requesting appointment to the Board of Assessors. That's Exhibit number 9. I had received a letter from the Board of Assessors referencing the expiring term for Sam Chafin, and that will expire on December 5th, 2011. Mr. Chafin has voiced a request to me and probably several others on the board that he wishes to continue serving in that role. And if the board chooses to make a subsequent appointment, that's fine, or if you choose to reappoint him to that position, then I will entertain a motion to that, and that term would expire December 5th of 2017. Mr. Bowman?
We went through a similar situation, I guess, a couple of years ago, or 18 months ago. And at that point in time, there were some comments made through some people in my district that were really upset with the way that it happened because of certain person. Nobody really knew that person wanted to serve because they never bothered to tell anybody, you know. So in this case, I just this comment is basically to let people know that this is not a district, I know we've said this before, but it bears saying it again because I still keep getting the questions and ask the questions, and it's not a district appointment. It's not this is something that's brought to the board, and Commissioner Holder, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we just basically affirm that position, we vote for that position, but it's not, you don't have one we don't do them in districts like we do the Water Authority or any of the other authorities, the Planning and Zoning and some of the others. And I really think that's a good thing because it keeps politics out of it. But at the end of the day, I just want the ones that are continually asking, and I know that some of them watch this program on a regular basis, is that this person wanted to serve, and, they sent a letter out that they wanted to continue serving, and so the board, obviously knows that they want to continue as opposed to the other situation, which, I received a great bit of criticism over, and I felt like that criticism really was unfounded. And I just wanted to reaffirm the fact that we do not pick assessors based on districts. So I felt like it was important to say that because I don't know if any other commissioner on the board had any other comments posed to them, but I just wanted to be sure that one more time that we state that we don't really, yes, we affirm them, but we don't really pick them. It's not a district pick. It's not a district appointment. And I appreciate it, and thank you for allowing me to make that comment. So.
Mr. Holder?
In response, Madam Chair, to what Commissioner Bowman said, he's indeed right. There is no district residency requirement for the Board of Assessors. It was created different back many years ago, long before my time, where the Water Authority has to be from a district that has a district requirement, or residency requirement, as well as other appointments that we make, Zone Advisory Board, various other things, so that there can be equal representation throughout the county. What brought this to the table and made the issue come forth was several years ago, District 5 ended up with a majority of, they had like 3 members of the 5-member board that were residing there. And I guess my next concern or my next question would be to the 2 districts that do not have a sitting member on the tax assessor board is, do you have a viable nominee for those positions? Because I think there's only 2, there are 2 districts that do not have. 2 and 3 districts, 2 and 3 that don't have representatives that are residents of that district. And if you
3 does. 3 does now.
I'm sorry, 4.
Cam Attaway.
As a matter of fact, one of the
2 and
ones
4. 2 and 4 of the districts that don't have representation.
She lives in Lake Day? Okay.
2 and 4.
As a matter of fact, when one was taken off of Commissioner of District 3, actually when one was taken off, that person that was taken off was living in District 3, and a District 3 was added, which really did not do what you're speaking of. You changed one for one, but anyway.
Another good example is DFAX board, no residency requirement. Health board, these are things. It's so. In some cases, you have residency requirements. Some you don't. District residency, I'm referring to.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Which reminds me, we still have an opening on the Board of Health. If someone would like to make a nomination to that at some point soon, we need to try to fill that position. Mr. Arletta?
To the point that was made by Commissioner Holder, I guess, and I heard what Mr. Bowman said, that this is the way it is. I guess the question I would raise is, should it be? And does it have to be? And that's a question, does it have to be? And shouldn't it be? And to Commissioner Holder's point, I look at District 2 right now, and it's about 1/3 of the land mass of this county. And I've had criticism after criticism from people in my district of the lack of representation they feel with everything on the east side of 75, and everything is on the east side of 75, and there's representation. And this, I think, just sort of rings clear again as to the lack of somebody for a third of the landmass of this county being represented in a process that is assessing property or taking care of property matters for quite a bit of this county. And I think that I speak for District 2. I don't speak for District 4, who does not also have one. Mr. Bowman can do that. But if there's an opportunity, and I understand this is a board position for 6 years, is that correct?
That is correct.
So once this is filled 6 years from now, District 2 or whoever will continue to be unrepresented based on the way it's done.
It may be if it's the board's wishes to go in that direction, that we need to look at where the current members will be residing in the new redistricting, because those lines will change in 2013, and to see where their residents fall based on those new maps. And we can do that. We could table this item. We have 2 more meetings before the expiration on December 6th, and we can have continue to have conversation about that if it's the wishes of the board. And they are 6-year terms.
They're 6-year terms, but they're staggered, so you may not wait 6 years is what I'm getting at. They're staggered terms, 5-member board, 6-year terms. So.
But this is an opportunity, as I understand it. This is an appointment here where I believe this is in District 5, and I believe they have 2 of the representatives.
Currently under the current.
Right. So this would be an opportunity to leave only one if this one was not reappointed and put another replacement in it. If, in fact, the next one that comes up is in District 1, which I believe only has 1 representative, obviously to remove that and replace it would not, in that staggered term, do any good. You'd end up voiding District 1 at that time. So I don't know when the next duplicative term comes up, but whenever that would be, it would be the next opportunity.
Well, the District 5, the other District 5 was appointed last year, I believe. That's Andy Shelton. Does that sound right, Mr. Holder?
Probably right, and then I don't know when those staggered terms. The clerk can give them to you.
If I'm not mistaken, under the new map, District 4 will be Kellytown, correct? He lives in Kellytown, so that would.
I'm not. Let me go on the record. I am not pushing for a district to have one. That was not my intent. My intent was to explain that we don't do it by districts. I don't have an issue with where they are. I really don't. I mean, that's not my intent. So, I mean, if Commissioner Aletta does, then that would be his. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't want, number one, I don't want a pick in it, because if I get a pick in it, then that's going to be 900 more calls I'm going to have to field because somebody don't like what my appointment to the tax assessor board is doing. I think it can get political in a hurry, and I don't have any issue with that. The main thing I wanted to put out there with my comment was simply that we do not do it by districts. I don't really want to do it by districts. I don't want to have an appointment. I'm going on record. I don't want to have an appointment because that's just another person that's going to be a political football and a political issue. Anytime something comes up, then I'm going to go and talk to the person that I personally appointed, and, you know, I can see where it would be an issue. So therefore, I don't really want, that's not my intent at all. That was not, I did not have that intention, and I just wanted it known that we don't have a quote-unquote appointment to it.
Mr. Aletta?
I can understand where you're coming from, Commissioner Bowman, and to the extent of me appointing or us appointing, I have no problem with what you said. But I do think this board has an obligation to the citizens of this county and all citizens of this county to make sure they're represented. And to the extent we have, as I said, approximately a third of the landmass not represented by anybody living in that area that would know that area a lot better than somebody living in District 5 or wherever else it is, and when the redistricting takes place, there will be no change. There still will not be a representative on the board with this appointment or others. So maybe it might clarify for 4 because of what the redistricting, this one was still. I think it's inappropriate for all the land west of 75 to not have one representative sitting on this board. And to support what you're saying, I would say the board needs to go back and make a recommendation of someone who lives west of 75 to take this position. That would be where I would like to see them go. Keep it out of politics, as you said. I won't appoint them, but they should be at least cognizant of the fact they owe to the citizens of this county to have representation for that kind of landmass on their board.
Do you have a recommendation?
My recommendation is to send it back to them to come up with a recommendation and keep the politics out of it, as
To
Commissioner
the Board of
Barnes-
Assessors?
Yes, yes.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question? LaTanya, is there any way that we could actually, if we chose as a board to move forward on this appointment, could we adjust the term today, say it's a 2-year term, not a 6-year term?
There is a lesser term option in the statute, Commissioner. I can't at this time recall what that is.
It's 2.
It's 2 or 6 by resolution. And I was just asking the county clerk, I believe we did that with the last appointment made, that there was a less than 6-year term provided. But I'll have to go back and check those records and get back with you, Commissioner
Because I'm
Slade.
thinking if we chose as a board to move forward today, instead of making a 6-year appointment, we could actually modify it and make a 2-year appointment.
I would ask them.
Personally, I would discourage that. Let's make the right decision
Table it.
and move on. And think back, when our forefathers set this up this way, just think back. Why did they have it this way? Why did they have it that there was no district requirement, a district residency requirement? It's probably to keep some of the politics out. Could you end up with all of them in one area? You certainly could. But it's not like either one of us has made that appointment. It is a board appointment. Same true with hospitals. Same true with health defects. Not hospital health and defects. Well, health defects. Hospital too. Rather than shortening a term and messing up the staggering process, we need to just make the appointment at some time, not necessarily today, whenever we can have nominations. We move forward.
Mr. Oletta?
I'd like to comment on that, and that is, I don't care who makes the appointment. If you're going to tell me politics is removed from any decision, I highly disagree, and we agree to disagree, whether it's made by this board here or this board, the assessors board, a friend of a friend, and whatever else. The appointments that are going to be made are going to be made based on whatever those decisions are made, and I would like to believe that we as a board here are going to make a decision in the best interest of the boards we're appointing people the same as they would. So our founding fathers or whoever created this may have done it on that basis, but when you stack it to have 3 to 5 people, as it used to be, in one district, in one area, when the land mass, as I said, that this board is going to go over, it doesn't matter. Appointments are going to be made based on a lot of different factors, and we hope they'll all be made for the right reasons, and let's just say they are, but we would do the same thing if it was our appointment as well. We could be accused of it, obviously, but I would think we'd do the same thing. So, yes, politics can come into it, friendships can come into it, a lot of things can come into it. We're accused of it all the time, as all elected officials are, but I think our judgment is going to be carried by what's the right thing to do, and I would hope the board would do the same thing. The assessors board would do the same thing.
I want to make one comment, and you're right to a point, Commissioner, because you'll never take politics completely out of it. But each one of us was elected by a group of people to represent their wishes. They can't vote, and we can't vote on every issue. They elect us to make the right decision for the masses in each district. So whether we choose someone from our district or another district, they still rely on each one of us to make the decision for the people in that particular district. So, no, you'll never take politics out of anything. Every morning you wake up, it's going to be very political.
Well, and to the extent that we've been voted to represent them, I'm stating my piece that I feel the people, of which there's 50,000 citizens currently before redistricting, which is much more than any other district. Your district is obviously very, very close to about 50 as well. That, again, when I look at land mass more so than people, the county has grown in that area. Obviously, a number of people have grown. And again, speaking, as you said, to represent the people that put us here, I'm speaking that I do believe they should have some representation of someone who knows that area as a member of that board. So,
And again, bring the nomination and discuss it as the board, and then the board makes the decision. Not you or not me or anybody makes that decision. It's a board action.
Any other comments on this item? Well, if I'm hearing the discussion that's going on correctly, it seems like we need a motion to table this item until a future meeting. And if that is the wishes of the board, then I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion that it be tabled on at least until the next available meeting, so that the districts that are not represented have an opportunity to bring forth a nomination from their respective district.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Holder and a second by Mr. Bowman. All in favor? Okay, all in favor of tabling?
All in favor of table?
Table. Yeah.
Okay, all opposed? Okay, motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Stamey voting not to table. Moving on to the approval of the minutes, we have several here. We're going to take these separately. The first one is going to be the October 3rd. Commissioner Arletta and Commissioner Holmes were absent for this meeting. Are there any corrections that need to be made? If not, I'll entertain a motion on the October 3rd meetings. Motion by Mr. Holder, second by Mr. Bowman. All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. The next is October the 4th, 2011. Are there any additions to these minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval. Motion by Mr. Stamey, second by Mr. Holmes. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Did anyone sign up for public comment? County Manager, any comments? Ms. County Attorney?
No, ma'am.
Upcoming meetings and events. Tuesday, November 8th is Election Day. Early voting is available now through November the 4th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the following locations: the Hampton Train Depot, in Locust Grove at the Locust Grove Recreation Center, in McDonough at Henry County Elections and Registration, that's at 345 Phillips Drive, and in Stockbridge at the Ted Strickland Community Center at 130 Berry Street. Monday, November the 14th at 9 a.m. and Tuesday, November 15th at 6:30 p.m. These are both regular board meetings. Thursday, November 24th and Friday, November the 25th, all county offices will be closed in observance of Thanksgiving. At this time, I need a motion to convene into executive session for the purpose of potential pending litigation, personnel issues, and land acquisition. Motion by Mr. Stamey, second by Mr. Holmes. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. I need a motion to reconvene into public session.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stamey, second by Mr. Holmes. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. I need a motion for approval of an affidavit and resolution pertaining to executive session. Motion by Mr. Arletta, second by Mr. Holmes. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. If there's no further business to come before the board, I need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Holder, second by Mr. Arletta. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. We stand adjourned.